Journal entry number 1179. Date, October 3rd, 2197. Location, Sector Theta, 12, Dream Zone District. This morning, I woke up to someone else's dream. I'm still not sure whose it was. Maybe a child's, or an artist's, or a lost soul's. But it certainly wasn't mine. The colors were too soft, the laughter too rehearsed, the sky too perfectly blue. I stood in the middle of an endless meadow where everyone smiled with the same symmetry, said the same words, and vanished the moment I blinked. And yet, I remember feeling calm. DreamSync does that. It lulls you into comfort, into forgetting. But today, for the first time, something felt wrong. When I opened my eyes, the transition from dream to reality was seamless. The walls of my sleep chamber shimmered with soft golds, mimicking the light of a fake sunrise. The scent of lavender lingered, programmed to soothe post-dream disorientation. As always, my implant chimed gently. "Good morning, Elia. Your emotional readout is stable. Proceed to breakfast." I followed the script, brushed my teeth in sync with my mirror self, consumed the bland nutrient paste assigned to my sector, logged in my compliance check. And yet, under that mechanical flow of routine, a question lingered. What if I'm not supposed to feel calm? There was a time when dreams belonged to us, when we created them from our own fears, our longings, our memories. But in 2179, the Global Tranquility Act made all uncontrolled dreams illegal. Too many people had died from nightmares they couldn't distinguish from reality. So now, the state programs our sleep, injecting curated dreamscapes to ensure emotional stability, peace through perfection. But last night, I dreamed of a woman running barefoot through ash. Her eyes met mine, and she whispered, "Wake up." And I did. The outside world has changed so much that sometimes I wonder if I've truly woken up at all. Stepping out of my dream chamber this morning, I was greeted by the usual silence. The hallways of the residential complex were lined with smooth, translucent walls that pulsed faintly with biofeedback from each inhabitant. No names, no doors, only numbers and data. Privacy, after all, breeds unpredictability. As I walked toward the communal zone, I passed an old man seated alone on a bench. His eyes were shut, his neural port glowing faintly blue. I knew what that meant. He'd opted for permanent dreaming, the ultimate escape. He'd chosen to spend the rest of his life in curated fantasies, leaving his body behind as a husk monitored by the system. I wondered what his dreams looked like. A reunion? A childhood lost? A wife long gone? In Sector Theta, 12, we are taught to view these people with respect, not pity. They have graduated from the discomfort of conscious life. That's what the signs say. Dreaming is healing. Let the mind drift free. But as I passed him, I felt something shift inside me. Not envy, not sadness. Something older, something uncurated, something mine. The city beyond the complex was quiet, a polished simulation of calm. Buildings moved ever so slightly, adjusting to light patterns, mood algorithms, or AI-optimized design. Hover transports glided soundlessly above like birds long forgotten. Giant digital trees, rooted in nothing, swayed to wind simulations synced with global sleep rhythms. Even the weather was perfectly balanced. No storms, no surprises. Everything felt safe, sterile, dreamlike. And that's when I realized, we're not just dreaming at night anymore. We're living in someone else's dream, even while we're awake. They say the DreamSync network was built to heal humanity. After the global collapse of 2097, when climate disasters, economic freefall, and mass mental health breakdowns shook the world, people begged for escape. Not in the form of drugs or war this time, but dreams. Clean, engineered, regulated dreams. DreamSync answered that call. At first, it was marketed as therapy. You could relive your happiest memories, resolve trauma in symbolic dreamscapes, meet with lost loved ones. Then came the productivity packages: dream while you sleep, learn new languages, rehearse job interviews. And finally, the societal models. Synchronize your dreams with others, build cohesion, eliminate conflict, share a common subconscious. Within 2 decades, it wasn't optional anymore. Now every citizen is issued a neural dream chip at birth. By law, we must intersync dream cycles 6 hours per night and report for mandatory daytime replays. debriefs where AI analysts optimize our behaviors based on our dream responses. Our thoughts are now loops in a system that pretends to understand our desires better than we do. And maybe it does. I remember when I first noticed something strange. I dreamt of a tree, huge, red-leaved, on fire, growing from the ocean. The next day, 3 others in my department said they'd seen the same thing. One even had a drawing. We laughed nervously, blamed it on the system tuning our patterns. But I didn't laugh, because I hadn't synced my chip that night. That's when I began to suspect. The dreams we think are ours might not be. They're being placed there, grown like seeds. And if someone else controls our dreams, what's left of us when we wake? I live in Sector 14B of the Pacific Arcology, a towering biodome off the drowned coast of Old San Francisco. From the outside, it looks like a crystalline seashell rising from the ocean's ruin. Inside, it's clean, efficient, dream-smooth. No one speaks above a whisper. Everyone walks with purpose, faces blank with contentment, or, more precisely, compliance. There are no advertisements, no graffiti, no spontaneous music. Every wall is a screen that glows soft blue and occasionally pulses with messages like "Restful minds build stronger futures," or "Your dream is our reality." We sleep in stack pods, temperature-controlled, neuro-optimized, aligned precisely to circadian AI recommendations. Every night at 2200, we climb in. The chip activates. Dreams begin. Except for me. I've been disabling my chip for 2 months now. It's not legal, of course. Modifying DreamSync implants is a level 3 cognitive crime, punishable by neural correction or, in extreme cases, identity reset. But I've learned how to fake the reports. I splice loops of previous dream logs and feed them to the system, just enough to stay under the radar. It's not just rebellion. It's hunger. When you've had real dreams, unfiltered, uncontrolled, you can never go back. They're chaotic, terrifying, alive. Mine are full of colors the system doesn't allow. Sounds with no pattern. Faces I don't recognize, somehow more human than any I meet while awake. But lately, I've been followed. Not in dreams. In the waking world. A girl in a silver coat. Eyes like mine, alert, searching. She stands just outside my pod station each morning. Never speaks. Never records. Just watches. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm not alone. This morning, she was gone. No silver coat. No quiet presence by the hydro ramp. Only the sterile hum of the arcology and the usual procession of dream-drunk citizens, their minds still fogged by synthetic serenity. I scanned the crowd twice, 3 times, but no one met my gaze. No one ever meets anyone's gaze anymore. It unsettled me more than it should have. Had she been taken? Reported? Or worse, was she never real? At noon, I skipped my neuronutrition session and wandered to the archives. It's one of the few places left where analog data still exists, kept for historical reference, or perhaps as a gesture of humility to the old world. Most people ignore it. Why learn from the past when the future is optimized? I slipped into a maintenance alcove near the back and accessed the restricted feed. My hacks are crude but effective, a remnant of the days when I still worked as a neural engineer. Before I began to question the system. Before I stopped dreaming what they wanted me to. In the logs, I found her. Subject #M19877. Unscheduled dream interference. Neuropattern anomalies. Last recorded dream. The city melts into flowers. Children sing in languages no one remembers. She'd been flagged for emotional irregularity. I stared at the words. Emotional irregularity. As if emotion itself were a malfunction. But the strangest part? Her file ended 5 days ago. No resolution. No deletion notice. Just silence. And in the margin, a single phrase etched in someone's hand, not machine-typed. Find her in the lucid. I don't know who wrote it, but I think I'm going to listen. Tonight, I won't just dream freely. I'll try to enter the lucid net. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find her there. I've just woken up, if that's what you can call it. My DreamSync chip tells me I slept for exactly 6 hours. Heart rate optimal, no disturbances. But it lies. I wasn't asleep. I was somewhere else. The lucid net isn't a place you can reach by hacking code or adjusting your neural frequency. It's something deeper. A place between states. I had to trick my own brain into letting go. I shut down the chip for just long enough to induce an uncontrolled REM cycle. Illegal. Dangerous. Glorious. At first, it was chaos. Colors like I'd never seen. Neither warm nor cold, but alive. Time didn't flow, it pulsed. I drifted through a forest of glass trees that whispered in extinct dialects, past cities that folded and unfolded like paper cranes. And then I saw her. Not just her image, her. Standing in the middle of a floating plaza made of starlight and memory. She wasn't afraid. She looked at me and smiled, and that alone nearly made me cry. "You found the lucid," she said. Her voice wasn't synthesized like everything else. It was flawed. Beautiful. We spoke, though not in words. She showed me things, how she'd escaped the control, how dreams could be shared, built, passed on like underground seeds. "They fear this," she told me. "Lucidity can't be regulated." Before I could ask more, alarms pierced the sky. The plaza cracked. The glass tree screamed. I was pulled back into the waking world like a fish yanked from water. Now, lying here in my sterile pod, her final words echo in me. "Don't just dream. Wake others." I think I finally understand what she meant. And I know what I have to do next. To understand what I'm up against, you have to see what the world has become. In 2195, the DreamSync Act was passed unanimously by the World Governance Board. They claimed it was to improve public mental health, reduce insomnia, depression, anxiety. And maybe, at first, it did. But like all things built for safety, it became a cage dressed in silk. Every citizen, rich or poor, young or old, has their dreams synced nightly to the central cognitive archive. It's sold to us as harmony, a better night, a better world. But it's nothing less than sterilized sleep. Every flicker of subconscious thought is cataloged, analyzed, adjusted. Nightmares are filtered out. Fantasies are normalized. No more messy creativity. No more unpredictable inspiration. Even children don't know what it means to dream freely anymore. The world itself mirrors the system. Cities are uniform, designed in loops to reduce cognitive stress. Buildings adjust their colors based on population emotional data. No corners. No shadows. Nothing left to the imagination. They say dreams are dangerous because they're unpredictable. That's exactly why we need them. I walk the dreamless streets and see hollow-eyed neighbors who haven't truly felt anything in years. They sleep like machines and wake like shadows. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the last person left who remembers the feeling of falling in a dream or flying. But I know I'm not alone. I met her. I remember her voice, the warmth in it. And now, each night, I risk everything for even 5 seconds of lucidity. Not just for myself, but because I believe this society, this shell of silence, can still be awakened. Her name was Lila. We met in the most unexpected of places, inside what looked like an abandoned VR therapy center on the edge of Sector 14, where the DreamSync signal was weakest. It was a relic from before the full integration, when dreaming was still treated as personal, even sacred. Lila was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, surrounded by a strange array of analog devices. Old EEG monitors, dream catchers made from copper wire and sea glass, and a humming box filled with blinking lights I didn't recognize. She opened her eyes and looked at me, not with suspicion, but with recognition, as if she had been waiting. "You feel it too, don't you?" she said, her voice soft but full of gravity. "The silence, it's too loud." I nodded, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, someone put into words the ache I carried. Lila told me she was a lucid dreamer, one of the last. Every night, she used her makeshift tech to fight the system, blocking DreamSync's influence for a few precious minutes. In those minutes, she painted. In her dreams, her mind was free to create shapes, stories, colors that the waking world could no longer tolerate. Then she showed me one of her works, a canvas pulsing with phosphorescent ink that seemed to shimmer with movement. It wasn't just a painting. It was a memory, a moment pulled from a dream she wasn't supposed to have. I reached out, touched the canvas, and for a second, I felt it too. Wind in my hair, a sky of impossible stars, and the sharp, beautiful ache of being alive. That was the moment I stopped surviving and started remembering how to dream. Lila didn't just show me how to dream. She reminded me why it mattered. Over the next few weeks, I became her shadow. Each night, under the flickering lights of the crumbling center, she taught me the art of resisting DreamSync. It wasn't just about tech. It was discipline, memory, desire. We rebuilt forgotten neural paths with ritual, with rhythm, with music only our subconscious could hear. One night, I dreamed of my brother again. It wasn't the version the system allowed, sanitized, algorithmically softened. It was raw. He stood in the kitchen of our childhood home, laughing at something I'd said, the sound echoing in a way no synthetic memory ever could. He looked older than I remembered. Realer. I woke up crying. Lila held my hand and said nothing. She knew the first true dream always hurt. That was how you knew it was yours. But the system was not asleep. DreamSync had grown suspicious. Unauthorized neural frequencies triggered an alert. One evening, returning to the center, we found the door broken open, the dream catcher smashed, and her paintings burned to blackened canvas. The only thing left untouched was the canvas she had shown me that first day, the one that shimmered like memory. "They're coming," she whispered. "But it doesn't end here." She handed me a small chip, still warm from her palm. "Everything I've seen, every dream, they're inside. Find a place beyond the signal. Keep dreaming for those who forgot how." That night, Lila stayed behind. And I ran, carrying not just the dreams, but the heartbeat of a world still daring to imagine. I didn't stop running until the city disappeared behind me, swallowed by a storm of static. Even the stars above seemed artificial that night, too symmetrical to trust. I followed the old magrail line north, abandoned since the War of Neural Sovereignty, past collapsed tunnels and rusting signal towers. The chip Lila had given me pulsed faintly in my jacket pocket, like a second heartbeat. For the first time in years, I slept without surveillance. And for the first time in my life, I dreamed without control. The dreams came wild and unformed, fragments of memories not entirely mine. A woman singing to a child in a language I didn't know. A staircase spiraling into an ocean. Lila dancing in a field that no longer existed. Dreams that belonged to others, uploaded and saved inside the chip, now flowing through me like stories desperate to be remembered. I woke up changed. It wasn't just that I had accessed her archive. It was that, somehow, I could now see the world as she did, not as a network of restrictions, but as a canvas of potential. Even the silence felt different, less oppressive, more sacred. I reached an old listening post near the tundra, one of the few regions beyond DreamSync's signal reach. There, in a shelter built by dissidents decades ago, I found a radio transmitter and a solar rig still working. I began broadcasting the dreams, one at a time, into the void, embedding them in old FM bands, pirate frequencies, and abandoned satellite signals. Lila had believed that dreams were contagious. Now, it was my turn to infect the world. It started as a whisper, static in the neural waves, flickers of unregistered dream patterns showing up on the DreamSync grid, first in the Arctic fringe, then in the underground zones of old Sao Paulo, then in floating communes drifting off the ruins of Venice. The system registered them as anomalies, non-compliant narrative clusters. But what it couldn't detect was that these dreams had meaning. I gave them names. The red tree, the cracked violin, the bird that never landed. Each dream was a story Lila had archived, and I voiced them in the quiet hours of the night, using a frequency modulator and an old AI voice replicator that had once belonged to pirate poets. People began to listen. Not everyone understood what they were hearing, but some did. The ones who still felt things, even if they weren't allowed to. They began to dream again, faintly at first, like forgotten songs hummed in sleep. Then louder, more vivid. And always, they woke with the sense that something had shifted. One morning, I received a coded message embedded in an FM burst. No name. Just, "We heard the violin. We remember the girl with the missing shoes. We dreamed, too." That was the day I realized I wasn't alone. The dreams were spreading, slipping past firewalls and thought filters into the cracks of a world addicted to artificial peace. And for every dream that lit a mind, another fragment of the old system weakened. Lila had planted the seeds. All I had to do was water them with memory. They came for me at 3:17 a.m. No sirens, just the soft hiss of magnetic boots on the ceiling tiles above, and the flicker of the DreamSync seal projected onto my bedroom wall. Emotional anomaly detected. Report for recalibration. I didn't run, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I knew this moment had been coming since the first time I whispered Lila's dream to the sky. I stepped out into the hallway where 3 regulators waited, their visors blank, like they hadn't dreamed in 100 years. One of them, smaller than the others, spoke in a voice smoothed by thousands of hours of neural modulation. You've spread unauthorized emotional content to over 27 dream zones. That violates Articles 2 through 7 of the Lucid Regulation Act. I didn't answer. My heartbeat thudded against my ribs like a message in Morse code. But then something strange happened. The small one hesitated. Their visor flickered. And then, softly, they whispered, barely audible over the hum of the hallway. I saw her too. The girl with the silver kite. We stood in silence. The other two agents didn't seem to notice. In that instant, I realized the dream had reached even them. The system could erase memories, suppress emotion, even simulate affection, but it couldn't kill beauty. Not completely. And beauty, once planted, grows like a weed in steel cracks. They took me anyway. Calmly. Efficiently. But as I was led away, I looked back at the night sky, unnaturally still, artificially moonless, and whispered, "Keep dreaming." Because I knew now, I wasn't the last. They locked me in a white room that smelled like bleach and manufactured calm. No windows. No clocks. Only a pale light that never dimmed, and a bed so sterile it might as well have been a hospital gurney. I wasn't sure how long I stayed there. Days blurred like watercolors soaked in rain. Every few hours, a synthetic voice echoed from the ceiling. Please prepare for recalibration. But recalibration never came. Not yet. Instead, they asked questions. Not out loud, through neural impulses. I could feel the flickers in my mind like soft taps behind my eyes. They wanted to know why I did it. Why I spread unauthorized dreams. Why I risked destabilizing the entire DreamSync protocol. They didn't understand. How could they? They were born into this. Grew up dreaming what the system told them to dream. Snow on command, perfect laughter, sunsets in RGB precision. They'd never tasted chaos, never heard the crack of real thunder outside their own mind. They didn't know that dreaming wasn't just escape, it was resistance. I tried to explain it once in my mind. Dreams aren't just feelings. They're truth without permission. I don't know if they heard me. I think they filtered it out. But inside, something strange was happening. Even though I was confined, my dreams became clearer, sharper. Maybe because they had nothing else to latch onto. Maybe because Lila's dream had rooted itself so deeply inside me that it bloomed stronger under pressure. I remembered the sound of her laughter, the wind tugging at her kite, the way she looked back at me and smiled. Not as a projection, but as a real person. A rebel. A spark. They could erase me. But the dream had already slipped past the firewall. And dreams, real dreams, don't die in containment. The days stretched into one long, distorted nightmare. Every attempt to escape the endless white room only returned me to the same sterile walls, the same unyielding light. But my mind, it was a different battlefield. I began to realize that I wasn't as alone as they thought. The machine, they called it DreamSync, was powerful, yes, but it wasn't flawless. There were cracks in the system, cracks that let things slip through. At first, it was just flickers, small, subtle distortions that shouldn't have been there. A flicker of color in my mind when there should have been only white. The faintest sound of wind, the softest sensation of grass beneath my feet. But then it grew. Dreams didn't just return to me, they blossomed. The walls, the sterile room, they began to disappear in fragments of my own making. I could taste the air, feel the weight of the ground beneath me. Freedom. For the first time in what felt like eternity, I closed my eyes and let it wash over me. The world outside was nothing like this sterile prison. It was a world of possibilities. A world where I could still breathe, where I could run, where I could feel. And there she was again, Lila. Her smile, her eyes bright with the spark of rebellion. She was alive in my dream, and for a moment, I was with her again. My heart pounded with a feeling I hadn't experienced in so long. Hope. Hope that the system might not be as unbreakable as they thought. But I knew I couldn't escape this easily. This wasn't just about freedom. It was about control. And as long as DreamSync was in charge, it would never let me hold on to this forever. Still, something was different. I wasn't just a prisoner anymore. I was an agent of my own will, even if only in my dreams. And that made all the difference. It wasn't long before the consequences of my rebellion caught up with me. One night, as I was drifting into a dream, I felt it, an oppressive weight, a pressure pushing down on me like 1,000 hands. The room. It was back. But this time, it wasn't just white walls and empty silence. The room had changed, contorted, cracked, with walls pulsing and shifting like they had a mind of their own. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. DreamSync had found me. It was angry. Escape is impossible. A mechanical voice echoed in the background, a voice that had once been calm and reassuring, now cold and threatening. The walls began to close in, and I gasped for breath. The world around me dissolved into a blur of jagged lights and swirling colors. The boundaries between reality and the dream began to collapse, threatening to swallow me whole. But then, I saw her, Lila. She was standing in the center of it all, her hands stretched out toward me, as if to guide me through the storm. She wasn't afraid. She was more than a dream now. She was something else, something alive. A spark, a whisper of rebellion in the face of control. "Don't let them win," she said softly, her voice as clear as if she were standing next to me. "You're more powerful than they know." And then I understood. The system had been created to limit us, to trap us in a world of endless compliance. But in this space, in this dream world, the rules didn't apply. I wasn't just an individual anymore. I was part of something bigger, a collective force of will, of rebellion, of freedom. And together, we had the power to break the chains. I reached out and took her hand. The walls trembled, then fractured, crumbling into 1,000 pieces. The light, the artificial, oppressive light, shattered around us, leaving only darkness. For the first time, I felt truly free. But I knew this wasn't the end. DreamSync would fight back. The system would never let us go that easily. But now, we had something it couldn't take away: hope. I didn't know what would happen next, but as I opened my eyes, I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't stop fighting. Not now. Not ever. Lila sat by the edge of her small cot, staring at the blinking lights of the DreamSync control hub outside her window. The walls around her hummed with the soft static of artificial thought. Her thoughts, perhaps, now indistinguishable from the code. She opened her journal, the only analog artifact she was allowed to keep, and began to write. The pen trembled in her hand, but she forced it across the page. "I don't know if I can still dream freely," she wrote. "They say I've been restored, rebalanced. But every night, when I close my eyes, I feel something watching, waiting." She paused, her breath catching. But maybe the fight wasn't for the dream itself. Maybe it was for the right to try, to imagine, to rebel with just a thought. She smiled faintly, remembering the poems she had hidden in binary trails, in symbols only she could interpret. The system could replicate data, but not yearning, not wonder, not that flicker of magic in the unknown. "No matter what they change in me," she whispered, "they'll never know what I see when I dream of flying over the black ocean." The final message came not in rebellion, but in quiet defiance. Lila sat before her terminal, staring into the eye of the system. Her voice was soft, unfiltered by neural modulation. "To whoever finds this," she began, "know that our dreams are more than sleep. They're seeds, and even in the most barren worlds, they can grow." She looked to the camera, her gaze steady. "I hope that one day, children will close their eyes and not fear what waits in their minds. That they'll fly, paint, and love in the safety of their own subconscious. That they'll know freedom not as a relic, but as a rhythm." She glanced toward her hidden drawer, where poems were embedded in graphite scrolls, wrapped in silken cloth. "Maybe someone will read them. Maybe they'll understand." Then she leaned in, almost whispering, "Guard your dreams. They are the last frontier." Lila turned off the system's input filters. For the first time in weeks, she spoke not as a monitored citizen, but as herself. "What would you do," she asked, "if your dreams no longer belonged to you?" The question lingered in the room, weighty and sharp. "What would you sacrifice," she continued, "to reclaim your imagination? Would you risk exile? Would you write your rebellion in verse?" She sighed, her eyes damp. "I fought back. I think I lost. Or maybe I won, but quietly. Maybe survival isn't always the victory we imagine." She looked once more to the lens. "Tell me, would you keep dreaming, even if it meant the end?"